Good evening and welcome to Sundays with Neelu. I hope you all are doing well. Thank you for all your story responses. Happy Teachers' Day to all of you. My prayers and best wishes to all the students and those who are watching Sundays with Neelu. Coming to this week's story. This week's story's title is The King Who Stopped the River. So, once there was a king called Muchi Raja. Muchi Raja was ill-tempered. And what did he do? One evening he was walking by the banks of the river that bordered his kingdom. So his kingdom was very small and he managed it pretty well. So as he was walking on the banks of the river, he saw that the river was flowing down to another kingdom. So he looked at his minister and he asked him, "Where does this river go to?" So the minister immediately responded, "It goes down the hill and it reaches your brother's kingdom." So he got very annoyed. He said, "No, I hate my brother." His brother was his enemy. So he said, "I don't want this river to go there. Please stop the river immediately." So the minister was perplexed. He looked at the king and he said, "How the hell am I stop?" He said to himself, "How the hell am I supposed to stop a river?" But then he knew the king very well. The king was very ill-tempered, yeah. And if he said anything back, then his head would be cut into pieces. So he nodded his head, and both minister and the king walked back to the kingdom. So the minister was thinking how to stop the river. So he thought of an idea. He went to the timekeeper of the kingdom and he said, "Look, I want you to do something." So this timekeeper kept the time by ringing the bell every 1 hour. There was a huge bell outside the kingdom and he would ring the bell every 1 hour. So he told him, "Now I want you to do something. Just ring the bell every half hour instead of every 1 hour." So the the bellkeeper, the timekeeper, followed his instructions and he did that. He started ringing the bell every half hour. So the king finished his dinner early and he heard the bell. He thought it was time to bed and he went off to sleep. In his sleep, he saw a dream. He saw that his brother was pulling his hair and getting very annoyed that the river stopped, and he was cursing the king, and he was seeing all this in his dream. By then, he opened his eyes and he thought it was morning, and he looked outside and he said, "Oh, today the night is very long." And he called his minister and he asked him, "The night seems to be very long. Where is the sun? The sun hasn't risen yet. The bell rang, exactly. I get up at this time, and the bell rang. I counted the bells." So the minister said that, "Your Majesty, the sun didn't come up today." "But why? Why didn't the sun rise?" So he said, "You stopped the river and your brother stopped the sun from coming up." "What?" The minister said, "Yes, Your Majesty, your brother stays in the east and you stay in the west. So the sun has to rise in the east and come to the west. So your brother stopped the sun from coming to your kingdom because he was very upset that you stopped the river from flowing into his kingdom." He said, "Is that so? How are we supposed to live without the sun? Go and immediately, start the river and ask it to flow." So the minister nodded his head and he said, "Yes, Your Majesty, I will tell the river to start flowing." And he goes back, and then he goes back and he feels relieved, and the morning sun rises and the king gets up and feels happy, and he thinks that the minister had done all the job throughout the night, stopping the river, putting the sun down, getting it up, everything. So there ends the story. So this was a funny story which I read, and I thought, people when they're angry, they lose their mind. The king who ruled the kingdom lost his mind. He was so single-minded, single-track minded, so he lost his mind. So while reading this story, I was remembering how we used to go for summer holidays and how we used to go to my grandmother's place. So my grandmother, while we used to go to my grandmother's place, we had to board a train, which was almost like my grandmother's house was 6 hours away, and we had to take a train overnight. Not exactly, yeah, yeah. It used to reach at 11:30. We used to get into the train in the evening sometime. 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, yeah, 5 o'clock. 5 to 11:30 was the journey. So when the moment we used to get into the train, me and my sister, we were very small. We were in school, yeah. So during summer holidays, we always used to visit Nani. So the moment we used to sit in the train, first thing is we would fight for the window seat, and finally, one window, my sister used to sit by the window, and I used to sit by the other window. And then we used to look outside the window for some time, but after some time, we would get bored. So, what do you do once you get bored? So, once we got bored, we would look at mummy and start asking for food. Give us something to eat, give us this, give us that. So, my mother used to get really irritated with this whole thing all the time, asking for something or the other. Then I used to start asking, Mummy, when are we going to reach Nani's place? When are we going to reach Granny's place? So my mother used to say, just, 5 more stations. So then I would sit to count the stations and the stations wouldn't arrive. Then my mother would trick us by saying that, like, you just look at this watch, and if the clock reaches, and if the long hand reaches this place and the short hand reaches 11, that's the time we reach. So we used to sit and keep looking at the watch, keeping the time. I remembered from the story, the timekeeper. So my mother would say, see, now it reached here, it has to reach a little more. The long hand has to move a little more. It has to reach reach 1, it has to reach 2. Like that, she would trick us and she would tell us stories like, it is going to reach here, it is going, and we used to look at the same watch, nothing changed. We used to reach at 11:30, but we in our minds used to think, look at the clock, and we used to think that the clock is moving and according to our whims and fancies. So this is something which I remembered while reading the story. So it was a big task for my mother to to make us sit in that train and to take us to our granny's place. And sometimes we used to play games, we used to do something or the other. But as children, we can't sit at one place. We want to play, we want to go. And finally, whenever we used to reach granny's place late in the night, and we would sleep and get up in the morning, and there would be goodies ready, and we would spend our holidays wonderfully. So this is what I remembered when I read the story of Muchi Raja who wanted to stop the river. So thank you so much for listening to this story. I will see you next Sunday again with a new story. And please leave your comments, your responses in the comment section. I will respond to all the comments related to this story. Have fun. Have a wonderful week ahead. Take care of your health. Stay safe. Bye.